Yes, folks, it's Tales from the Jails with John G. Sutton. Thank you very much for watching. Do please, come on, please, like and subscribe. It's just a little click down there, and it really, really helps. I'm going to talk today about the perils of Pentonville. Last night on BBC Radio 4, during the PM programme, that's from 10 p.m. to 10:45 p.m. I highly recommend it. It's intelligent radio, you get proper news, and they do, if they're going to interview politicians and what have you, the gloves are most definitely off. Well, BBC Radio 4 sent a team into Pentonville to have a look at what was going on there in the light of the early dawn, which is the name of the operation that's going to release approximately 5,000 inmates into the community from the prison. And they concentrated specifically on Pentonville. It sounded horrendous. If you've not listened to it, I believe you can get it. It's on BBC Sounds. And if you go there and listen to the PM programme from last night, it's on at about 10:15. So it's about 15 minutes into the programme. And there's banging and shouting and screaming, and they're interviewing prison staff. One of the hostess system, poor lady, I mean, don't forget, I might say that it's inappropriate for them to be there, which it is, and there's been no risk assessment, no consideration of the health and safety of the officers that are being sent in, the female officers. And this particular female officer stated that as she tried her best to break up a fight, she got both her wrists broken. That is what's going to happen. The thing is, let's go back a little bit. If there was trouble on the landings, in the Scrubs or Armley Jail, Walton Jail or Strangeways, I worked in all these jails, you won't get your wrist broke. The inmates might get their snot boxes smashed open, dragged down to the block screaming, and thrown naked into a cell where some bastard in a white jacket would come in with a syringe and fill their arse full of Largactil. But there wouldn't be any damage to the staff, unless it was extremely unusual, and there were occasions when staff were assaulted, but that's usually by people who were mentally disturbed, who would tool themselves up with a shank and slashed. I saw one poor officer slashed from his ear right down onto his chin. It missed his jugular vein by about 1/4 of an inch, and all the side of his face was open like a flap. There was blood pissing everywhere. Terrible. And the worst thing was, this guy was on all the front pages of the newspaper. It's back in, I think it was 1981. Something like that, yeah. But he went back to work. No compensation that I heard of. Nothing that he told me. And I did ask him, was he all right? But Pentonville, the staff are being injured. They're releasing the population of Pentonville is currently approximately 1,200, and 80% of that number are non-convicted remand inmates who are being held pending trial and sentencing at court. Of course, the court system's broken. The government over the last 30 years, I would say, have allowed the criminal justice system to slip into complete and utter disrepair, and it's now at the point where let's face it, it's broken. And as a prime example, have a look at Pentonville. The staff can't handle it. They interviewed some of the inmates, and the inmates were shouting and stating, it's chaos, absolute chaos. And the staff were saying on one day last week, there were 30 alarm calls. How are you going to deal with that? I mean, I was at the Scrubs and Strangeways. We'd get an alarm call maybe twice a week. You know, not much more than that. But 30 in one day, the system has been broken completely and utterly, and it now has to be looked at from the top right down to the bottom. But who's going to do it? They interviewed a very interesting and erudite prison officer who had served in Yorkshire in one of the prisons there, and he was saying that, quite rightly so, this is a point that I made the other day, that you're releasing 5,000 or more prisoners into the system. How is it going to cope? Because the probation service that are supervising their entry back into society are unable to deal with such a massive influx. And people who are working night shifts or split shifts, say like 6 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon, or 2 in the afternoon till 10 at night, they're going to be outside of the system that requires them to be within their residences from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. So immediately they're going to get rearrested. The recidivism rate is currently approximately 60%. Now, you've got people going into society completely unprepared. They weren't really expecting this. And there are inmates, believe this or not, inmates who are saying, I don't want to be released. Because if I get released, I'm going to A, lose my job because I work late, I work nights, and I'm going to have nowhere to stay, I'm going to have no food. So they're better off in prison. What kind of a world have we created here? Well, I know what we've done. I mean, there was a famous series in the 1960s called The Prisoner with Patrick McGowan. If you watch The Prisoner all the way through, he's meeting people are saying and he's saying to them, who is number one? And the voice speaks and it says, you are number 6. But it doesn't mean that you are number 6. It means that you're number 1. When number 6, that's Patrick McGowan, says, who is number 1? The voice says, you are number 6. Meaning that number 6 himself is number 1. He makes the decisions. And the whole message of the series The Prisoner is that society is the prison. And if you've actually watched it, right at the end, the final scene is where he escapes from the island and he finds himself in the middle of London. That is the prison. Society is the prison. And we, the citizens, are the prisoners. Have a look at that programme on BBC Radio 4, the PM programme. It's on BBC Sounds, and it actually does sound horrendous. I feel really sorry for the staff in there. And as for the poor hostess system, the ladies that are doing that, God help them. They shouldn't be there. There's been no risk assessment. The health and safety is being broken, and those responsible for perpetrating this disgrace to society should be prosecuted, in my opinion. Anyway, have a look at that. The whole system's going to go to shit. It's already gone, and it's going to get worse. And the problem is, of course, you're sticking loads of people out onto the streets from the prisons who are ill-prepared. They've no means of supporting themselves. I mentioned this the other day. In 1951, when I was 2 years old, the population of the United Kingdom was 50,000. Today, the population of the United Kingdom is over 70,000. And as I said, I had a look. It seems to me to be the same size. Anyway, it's that time of day, folks. I sincerely hope you enjoyed this Tales from the Jails. I am going away on holiday for a few days now. Going down to Cornwall, actually. Staying in a 18th century cottage with one of my friends from America and my dear wife Mary. Hope you enjoyed this. I'll be back. Don't worry, I will be back. Please do leave me comments. I'll do my best to answer them while I'm away, because I've got an iPad or something like that. I don't know. I'm not a technophobe, but I will do my best to actually answer your comments, and I appreciate them. It's time of day, folks. Yeah, that's the song dinger, by the way. But I'm not going to sing you a song. It's early morning here. In fact, it's not even 5 a.m. yet. I've had to get up because I'm setting off to drive down to Cornwall. I'm going to read you, well, I'm going to recite you a poem. I'm not absolutely no notes. This is a particular collection of poems that's very dear to my heart. I absolutely love this. And I went to Shropshire to have a look round at the areas that are described in this poem. These poems by A.E. Houseman. This is a poem, a short sample from a poem, a collection of poetry called A Shropshire Lad. Have a look it up on Google, a Shropshire Lad, A.E. Houseman. And this is a poem. One of the lines from this poem was used as a play, and it was on television, and in the play was Colin Welland played one of the parts. And Colin Welland was my art teacher at school. He was a big, fat, ignorant bully. I'll tell you. I mean, he was about 6'1", but about 18 stone, and I was 11. And one day in the dinner time, because you'd have school dinners, you know, I said to somebody on my table, "You pass me the water." Colin Welland, who was the duty teacher, said, "You, Sutton, my office directly before lunch." So I had to go to his classroom, you know, for speaking during lunch. We weren't allowed to speak. Silence. Yeah. I mean, the cheeky bastard. I saw him years later when he was giving a speech at the Oscars, when he won an Oscar for Chariots of Fire. And everybody was dining, and he's chatting away, and when I got to his classroom, he grabbed hold of me by the hair, back of my head, bent me over this bench, got a big rubber slipper, gym slipper, and belted the living daylights out of me. I wrote to his agent some years ago and said, "Could you ask your client, Colin Welland, if he's still abusing little children, and tell him that John would like to see him?" I was going to go and see him and give him a spanking, I'm telling you. But unfortunately for me, he died of dementia before I could get my hands on him. Anyway, here is that poem. I've been jabbering on a little bit here. Here is that poem from A Shropshire Lad by A.E. Houseman. Into my heart an air that kills from yon far country blows. What are those blue remembered hills? What spires, what churches those? That is the land of lost content. I see it shining plain, those happy highways where I went and cannot come again. A Shropshire Lad by A.E. Houseman. I'll see you soon. Tales from the jails.